Part 4. Exile to a Deathworld. Typical Tuesday for a human. 2 years had passed since Jake Morrison arrived on K-49. The small camp on the plateau had transformed into something remarkable. What started as a simple shelter was now a compound with multiple buildings, all connected by covered walkways. The walls around his settlement were thick and strong, made from stone and reinforced with metal from the Zarathi pirates. Jake had built a main house with several rooms. There was a bedroom, a workshop, a storage area, and even a small kitchen where he prepared his food. The roof was designed to catch rainwater, which flowed into a large reservoir he had carved out of the rock. The water then went through multiple filters before he used it. His garden had expanded significantly. He had managed to grow several earth plants from the seeds he smuggled. Tomatoes were growing well in the alien soil. So were potatoes and some herbs. He had also learned which native plants were safe to eat. Some of them were actually quite tasty. The herd of Bettys had grown. From the original injured female, there were now 15 of the rabbit armadillo creatures living in a large pen Jake had built. They provided him with meat and something else he had discovered by accident. Their plates could be ground into a powder that worked like flour. Jake had been experimenting with making bread. It was not perfect, but it was better than eating dried meat every day. Jake himself looked different too. His body had become incredibly strong from living in the heavy gravity. His muscles were dense and powerful. His skin was tanned dark from the twin suns. He had a thick beard now and hair that was getting long. He looked like someone who belonged on a frontier world, not like the clean-cut human who had arrived years ago. The local ecosystem had completely adjusted to his presence. Smaller animals treated his compound as a safe zone, knowing that big predators avoided the area. Jake had even started naming some of them. There was a family of the bird lizard creatures living in the rocks near his house. He called them the Jenkins family, though he had no idea which one was which. The Zarathi visited regularly, usually once every few weeks. They brought news from the galaxy and materials they no longer needed. In return, Jake repaired their ships and equipment. He had become quite good at it. The pirates trusted him now, which was saying something. Pirates did not trust easily. Klikchara had become a genuine friend. The insectoid pirate captain would often stay for a few days, sharing meals with Jake and telling stories. Through him, Jake learned about galactic politics, trade routes, and the various species that inhabited known space. "Your case is still causing problems," Klikchara said one evening. They were sitting on the porch Jake had built onto his main house watching the sunset. "The Human Diplomatic Corps has been very aggressive in demanding your release." "Yeah?" Jake was carving a piece of wood, making a new handle for a tool. "What is the council saying?" "They are divided. Some species think you should be released. Others think humans are becoming too bold and need to be reminded of their place. It is quite the debate." "Sounds political," Jake said, not looking up from his work. "Very much so. There is talk of changing the laws about Deathworld exile. Your case has made them reconsider whether it is an effective punishment." Jake laughed. "I bet they did not expect someone to actually thrive here." "No," Klikchara agreed. "They did not. Most species view places like K-49 as certain death. The fact that you have built all this is deeply disturbing to them." "Good," Jake said with a grin. "Let them be disturbed." The next day, Klikchara brought Jake something special, a communications device that could reach beyond the planet. It was old and a bit broken, but Jake thought he could fix it. "Why are you giving me this?" Jake asked, examining the device carefully. "Because you should be able to talk to your people if you want," Klikchara said. "You have been alone here for 2 years. That is a long time, even for a human." Jake was touched by the gesture. He thanked the pirate captain and got to work on the communicator that same day. It took him 3 days to repair it. When he finally got it working, he sat in his workshop, staring at the device. He could call Earth, he could talk to his family. His friends, Lisa, but did he want to? Life here had become comfortable in its own way. He had routines. He had projects. He had adapted to this place. Calling Earth would remind him of everything he had left behind. Everything he could not have for at least 3 more years. In the end, he decided to call. He owed them that much. The connection was bad, full of static and delays, but it worked. He called the Human Diplomatic Office and asked them to patch him through to Lisa Chen. When her face appeared on the small screen, Jake felt a wave of emotion he was not prepared for. She looked the same. Same dark hair, same kind eyes, same smile. Jake? Her voice was full of disbelief. Is that really you? Hey, Lisa, he said, suddenly not knowing what to say. Oh my God, you are alive. You look so different. Your beard, your hair. Are you okay? I am good, Jake said, and he realized it was true. Really good, actually. They talked for an hour. Lisa told him about what was happening on Earth, about their friends, about the political fight to get him released, about how he had become famous. Apparently, videos of his trial had spread across human networks. People were calling him a hero for standing up to the Galactic Council. Jake told her about his life on K-49, about his compound, about the Zerathi, about Betty and her babies, about the garden and the things he had built. Lisa listened with growing amazement. Jake, you built all that? By yourself? Had a lot of time and motivation, Jake said with a shrug. The council keeps saying you are being punished, that you are suffering, but it sounds like you are doing better than most people back home. I am not going to lie, Jake said. It was hard at first, really hard, but I figured it out. This place is not so bad once you understand it. Only you would say that about a Deathworld, Lisa said, shaking her head but smiling. Before they ended the call, Lisa gave him news. The diplomatic corps thinks they can get you released in about a year. Maybe sooner. Would you want that? Jake was quiet for a moment. I do not know, he admitted. I have built something here. I am not sure I want to leave it. Jake Morrison, are you telling me you actually like living on a planet that is designed to kill you? I guess I am, Jake said. Is that weird? Yes, Lisa said. But that is what makes you you. After the call ended, Jake sat in silence for a long time. He thought about Earth, about civilization, about hot showers and real coffee and sleeping without worrying about predators, but he also thought about the freedom he had here. The satisfaction of building something with his own hands, the peace of living by his own rules. He did not know what he would choose when the time came, but he had a year to figure it out. For now, he had work to do. His reservoir needed expansion. He wanted to build a greenhouse for his garden, and he had promised Klikchara he would repair the targeting system on one of the pirate ships. Jake stood up, stretched, and walked outside. The twin moons were rising, casting purple light across his compound. Somewhere in the jungle something roared, another creature answered. Jake smiled. This was his life now. Strange, dangerous, and completely unlike anything he had imagined. But it was his, and that made it precious. Part 2, Exile to a Deathworld. Typical Tuesday for a human. Jake woke up to the sound of rain hammering against his shelter. The noise was incredibly loud, like someone throwing rocks at the walls. He sat up and checked his equipment. Everything was dry inside. The shelter was doing its job. Outside, the world was gray and wet. The rain was so heavy he could barely see 10 feet in front of him. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by thunder that shook the ground. This was not normal rain. This was the kind of storm that would destroy buildings back on Earth. Jake waited for the storm to pass. It took 6 hours. When it finally stopped, the sun came out and everything steamed. The jungle below looked even thicker and greener than before. Time to explore. Jake strapped his knife to his belt and filled his water bottle from the filter. He grabbed a long stick to use as a walking stick. Then he stepped outside. The first thing he noticed was the smell. Everything smelled fresh and alive and a little bit rotten all at the same time. The second thing he noticed was the heat. Now that the storm was gone, the temperature had jumped up. It felt like being in a sauna. He started walking around his plateau, mapping everything in his head. The flat area was about 200 feet across. There were rocks on one side where water trickled down from higher up. That was good. Fresh water was important. On the other side, there was a steep cliff that dropped down to the jungle. Jake stayed away from the edge. He did not know if the ground was stable yet. As he explored, he saw his first animal up close. It was small, about the size of a cat, but it looked like someone had mixed a lizard with a bird. It had scales and feathers at the same time. It watched Jake with bright yellow eyes. Jake moved slowly, not wanting to scare it. The creature tilted its head, studying him. Then it made a chirping sound and ran away, disappearing into some rocks. Good. The small animals were scared of him. That meant they would not be a problem. But there were bigger animals, too. Jake could see tracks in the mud. Some were huge, with 3 toes and deep imprints. Whatever made those tracks was heavy, very heavy. He spent the morning gathering information. He found plants with large leaves that he could use for shade or shelter. He found a type of fruit growing on a thorny bush. He did not eat it yet. He would need to test it carefully to make sure it was not poison. By afternoon, Jake had a pretty good understanding of his immediate area. Now he needed to think about food. The packets they gave him would last maybe a month if he was careful. After that, he would need to find his own food. He set up a simple trap using some wire from his supplies and a piece of his food packet as bait. Then he waited. It did not take long. Within an hour, something small had taken the bait and triggered the trap. Jake went to check and found a creature that looked like a rabbit mixed with an armadillo. It had fur on top but hard plates on its back. It also had 3 rows of sharp teeth and was trying very hard to bite him. Jake dispatched it quickly and humanely. He felt a little bad about it, but this was survival. He needed protein. That night he cooked the meat over a small fire. The creature was tough and gamey, but it was food. It would keep him alive. The meat was purple, which was strange, but it tasted okay once he got used to it. As he ate, Jake thought about what the aliens had said. They called this a punishment. They thought 5 years here would break him. But Jake was already starting to see the possibilities. This planet was dangerous, yes, but it was also full of resources. There was water. There was food. There was shelter. Everything he needed to survive was here. He just had to be smart about getting it. The next few days followed the same pattern. Jake would wake up, explore a little more, set traps, improve his shelter, and learn about the planet. Each day he pushed himself a bit further from his camp. On the 4th day, he had his first real encounter with a predator. It happened in the late afternoon. Jake was checking his traps when he felt like he was being watched. He froze, not moving, and slowly looked around. There, in the shadows at the edge of the jungle. 2 eyes watching him. They glowed slightly like a cat's eyes in the dark. The creature moved and Jake got his first good look at it. It was big, maybe the size of a lion, but it walked on 6 legs instead of 4. Its body was covered in scales that shifted colors to match its surroundings. Its mouth had too many teeth. Jake and the creature stared at each other for a long moment. Jake's hand moved slowly to his knife. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was calm. He had faced dangerous animals before. The creature took a step forward, then another. It was testing him, seeing if he would run. Jake did not run. Instead, he made himself bigger. He raised his arms and shouted, making as much noise as possible. The creature stopped. It tilted its head, confused. This was not how prey was supposed to act. Jake took a step forward, still shouting. He picked up a rock and threw it. The rock hit the creature on its shoulder. That decided things. The creature turned and melted back into the jungle. It was not gone for good, Jake knew. It would be back. But for now, it had learned that he was not easy prey. Jake's hands were shaking a little as he walked back to his shelter. That had been close. If the creature had attacked, he might not have won. His knife was good, but it was small. He needed better weapons. That night, as another storm rolled in, Jake started planning. He needed to make this place more secure. He needed better defenses. He needed better tools. Most importantly, he needed to stop thinking like someone who was being punished and start thinking like someone who was building a home. The aliens thought 5 years was a long time. For them, maybe it was. But humans had built entire civilizations in less time. What could one human with motivation and knowledge build in 5 years on a planet with unlimited resources? Jake was about to find out. He spent the next several days gathering materials. Wood from dead trees, vines that were strong like rope, rocks that he could shape into tools. His engineering background came in handy. He had studied mechanical systems in school and worked with his hands his whole life. First, he built a better fence around his camp. It was not much, just sharpened sticks driven into the ground, but it would slow down predators. Then he built a better fire pit, with rocks arranged to reflect heat back toward his shelter. Fire was important. It kept animals away and let him cook food and purify water. He also built a rack for drying meat. When he caught something, he would cook part of it and dry the rest. That way he could store food for days when hunting was bad. By the end of his second week on K-49, Jake's camp looked different. It was no longer just a shelter with some supplies scattered around. It was starting to look like a real camp, a place where someone lived, and Jake was starting to feel different too. The heavy gravity was making him stronger. His muscles were adapting. His lungs were working more efficiently. His body was changing to match the planet. He was not just surviving. He was adapting. One evening, as the twin moons rose in the purple sky, Jake sat by his fire and smiled. The Galactic Council had sent him here to suffer. But he was not suffering. He was living. This was not punishment. This was opportunity. Part 1, Exile to a Deathworld. Typical Tuesday for a human, the courtroom was huge. Aliens from dozens of different planets sat in rows, watching the human who stood in the center. Some looked like giant insects. Others glowed with soft light. A few resembled walking trees. They all stared at Jake Morrison, who stood with his arms crossed, looking bored. The judge was called High Arbiter Zekthor. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shine under the lights. He raised one long arm to get everyone's attention. Jake Morrison from planet Earth, Zekthor said through a speaker that translated his words. You have broken our laws many times. You went to places that were forbidden. You ignored our safety rules, and you punched Ambassador Krell in the face. He grabbed my friend Lisa, Jake said simply. Nobody gets to do that. Many aliens made strange sounds. Some clicked, some hummed, others whistled. The ambassador that Jake had punched turned bright purple with anger. That does not matter now, Zekthor continued. We have made our decision. You will be sent to planet K-49. It is what we call a Class 12 death world. You will stay there for 5 years. We will give you basic supplies, but nothing more. This punishment will teach you respect. Jake just shrugged. Okay. The room exploded with noise. Every alien seemed shocked. Zekthor leaned forward, his large eyes focused on Jake. Human, do you understand what I just said? Planet K-49 is extremely dangerous. The gravity is much stronger than Earth. The air has poison in it. The animals will try to kill you. The weather is terrible. Most beings would die there in days. Yeah, I heard you, Jake said, looking at his hands. So when do I leave? One of the council members, who looked like a floating jellyfish made of light, pulsed with a worried color. Does he really not understand how dangerous this is? Humans are either very brave or very stupid, another alien muttered. Maybe both, said a third. Jake looked up at the viewing area where his friend Lisa sat. She was another human with dark hair and kind eyes. She smiled at him and waved. Lisa knew Jake would be fine. He had survived terrible places before. He had worked rescuing people in the frozen mountains of Alaska. He had climbed the tallest mountain on Earth without oxygen tanks. He had walked away from a crashed spaceship when everyone else died. The ship leaves in 3 hours, Zekthor announced. May your gods protect you, human. Thanks, Jake said. Can I get some food first? The stuff in your jail tastes awful. 3 hours later, Jake sat in the back of a transport ship. 2 guards from a race called the Rithians sat far away from him. They wore full protective suits and kept checking their equipment nervously. You should be scared, one guard said quietly. Of what? Jake asked. He was looking out the window at the planet below. He could see huge storms covering parts of it. There were volcanoes too. Looks like home. Home? Never mind. The ship shook as it entered the atmosphere. They flew down toward a flat area of land surrounded by thick jungle. Jake could see enormous creatures moving in the trees below. Some were as big as buildings. The guards made nervous sounds. The landing was rough. The back door of the ship opened, and immediately Jake heard the sounds of K-49. Animals roaring. Strange screeches. Thunder rumbling in the distance. Your supplies, the first guard said, pointing to a small pile. There was a shelter, a water filter, a knife, and a small device that would call for pickup in 5 years. Jake picked up his gear and walked down the ramp. The gravity hit him right away. Everything felt heavier. His legs, his arms. Even breathing took more effort. But Jake had trained in high gravity before. He could handle it. The air smelled strange, like rain and dirt and something else he could not name. Good luck, human, the second guard said. He sounded sad. You are braver than most. See you in 5 years, Jake said with a smile. The door closed. The ship's engines roared as it fought against the heavy gravity. Soon it was just a tiny dot in the stormy sky. Jake looked around. The flat area where he stood was good. It was high ground, which meant he could see danger coming. There was water dripping from rocks nearby. The jungle below was full of life. Something big was definitely watching him from the trees. He put down his gear and stretched. His back popped. His shoulders felt tight from the gravity. but he would get used to it. "All right, K-49, he said out loud to the planet. "Let's see what you can do." A roar answered him from the jungle. It was deep and loud and sounded angry. Jake grinned. "Yeah, good to meet you too." He started unpacking his shelter. The device unfolded into a small dome that would keep him warm and dry. It was not much, but it would do for now. Jake had survived with less. As he worked, he thought about the next 5 years. Most people would see this as a death sentence. The aliens certainly did. But Jake saw it differently. This was a challenge. This was a chance to test himself against one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. He had always been the kind of person who ran toward danger instead of away from it. When others saw impossible situations, Jake saw interesting problems to solve. When others gave up, Jake kept going. The sun was setting now, turning the sky orange and purple. The storms in the distance flickered with lightning. More roars echoed from the jungle. Jake could hear things moving in the darkness. He activated his shelter and stepped inside. It was small but comfortable. The walls glowed softly, giving him light. He ate one of his food packets. It tasted like cardboard, but it would keep him alive. Tomorrow he would explore. He would find better water sources. He would learn what plants were safe and which ones were poison. He would figure out which animals were dangerous and how to avoid them, or how to fight them if avoiding was not possible. For now, though, he needed rest. The heavy gravity had tired him out more than he expected. As he lay down to sleep, Jake smiled to himself. The Galactic Council thought they were punishing him. They thought sending him to a death world would break his spirit and teach him a lesson. They had no idea what humans were capable of. Outside, something large walked past his shelter. Jake heard its footsteps, heavy and slow. He heard it sniff the air, probably trying to figure out what this new creature was. Jake was not worried. He had his knife. He had his brain. And he had something the aliens did not understand. Humans did not just survive death worlds. They thrived on them. After all, Earth was a death world too. Humans had evolved fighting every day just to live. They had climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. K-49 was dangerous. But so was Jake Morrison, and tomorrow the planet would start to learn that. Part 5. Exile to a Death World. Typical Tuesday for a human 4.5 years after arriving on K-49, Jake Morrison had built something that would shock the entire Galactic Council. His compound now covered most of the plateau. Multiple buildings stood in neat rows, connected by paved walkways he had made from crushed stone and a cement-like substance he had learned to create from local materials. The main house was 2 stories tall now, with real windows made from a clear resin he had discovered in the jungle. There was a large workshop filled with tools he had either brought with him, made himself, or received from the Zarathi. There was a greenhouse where earth plants grew alongside native species. There was a barn for the Bettys, which now numbered over 40. Jake had even built a landing pad for the Zarathi ships with lights and everything. The pirates joked that his compound was nicer than some of their official bases. The planet that was supposed to kill him had become his home. He knew every trail for miles. He knew which plants were food and which were medicine. He knew the patterns of the predators and how to avoid them. He had even tamed a few of the smaller creatures, which now worked as early warning systems against larger threats. On this particular morning, Jake was working in his garden when he heard ships approaching. That was not unusual. The Zarathi visited often, but these engines sounded different. Higher pitched, more refined. He looked up and saw 3 ships descending from the sky. These were not pirate vessels. These were official Galactic Council ships with diplomatic markings. Jake's heart sank. He knew what this meant. The ships landed on his pad. Klikchara's ship was there too, having arrived just an hour earlier. The pirate captain came running out of the main house. "Council ships," Klikchara said, his antennae twitching with worry. "Should I leave?" "Too late now," Jake said. "Just stay calm. Let me handle this." The council ship's doors opened. Out stepped High Arbiter Zekthor, the same alien who had sentenced Jake 4.5 years ago. He was flanked by 2 guards, and behind them came someone Jake had not expected to see. "Lisa!" Jake shouted, running toward her. Lisa Chen broke away from the group and ran to meet him. They hugged, and Jake lifted her off the ground easily. The heavy gravity had made him incredibly strong. "Put me down, you caveman," Lisa laughed, but her eyes were wet with tears. "Look at you. You are huge. And is that actually a house behind you?" "I have been busy," Jake said with a grin. Zekthor approached slowly, his eyes scanning the compound. The High Arbiter seemed shocked. His mouth hung open slightly, which for his species indicated extreme surprise. "This is not possible," Zekthor said quietly. "You were sent here to suffer, to be humbled, but you have built a settlement." "Suffering is relative," Jake said, his arm still around Lisa. "You want to see inside? I have coffee, real coffee. I figured out how to grow it last year." The tour of the compound took an hour. Zekthor and his guards walked through every building, examining everything. The High Arbiter kept making notes on a device he carried. He seemed particularly interested in the greenhouse and the water purification system. "You have accomplished more here than some colonies with full support manage in a decade," Zekthor said finally. "How?" "Hard work," Jake said simply. "And help from friends." He nodded toward Klikchara, who stood nearby. "You have been consorting with pirates," Zekthor said, but his tone was more curious than accusatory. "They have been good neighbors," Jake replied. "Never caused any trouble." Klikchara made a chittering sound of amusement. "The human is good for business. We bring him materials. He fixes our ships. Everyone benefits." Zekthor was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Jake. "I have come to inform you that your sentence has been commuted. You are free to leave K-49. The Galactic Council has voted to grant you a full pardon." Jake felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, confusion. "When?" "Today, if you wish. Tomorrow at the latest. The Human Diplomatic Corps has been very persistent in advocating for your release." Jake looked around his compound, at the buildings he had constructed, at the garden he had grown, at Betty, who was watching from her pen with her latest litter of babies. "What happens to this place if I leave?" he asked. "It will be abandoned," Zekthor said. "This planet is forbidden territory. It will remain empty." "That is a waste," Jake said. "I have worked too hard to just leave it." "Jake," Lisa said gently, touching his arm, "you can come home. Earth, real cities, your family, they all miss you." Jake knew she was right. Part of him wanted to go home, but another part of him, a part that had grown stronger over the years, did not want to leave what he had built. "Can I have some time to think about it?" Jake asked. Zekthor's expression showed confusion. "You wish to consider whether to leave a death world? Most beings would jump at the chance." "This is not just a death world anymore," Jake said. "This is my home." They gave him until the next morning to decide. That night, Jake sat on his porch, with Lisa, Klikchara, and several other Zarathi who had come to say goodbye. They ate food from Jake's garden and drank something the pirates had brought. The twin moons cast purple light across the compound. "What will you do?" Klikchara asked. "I do not know," Jake admitted. "Part of me wants to stay. I have built something real here, something I am proud of. But," Lisa prompted, "but I miss home too. I miss my family, my friends. I miss being around other humans." "Can you not do both?" Klikchara suggested. "Return to Earth but come back here sometimes?" Jake considered this. Maybe, if the council would allow it. The next morning, Jake made his decision. He would return to Earth, but he had conditions. The compound would be protected, not abandoned. It would become the first human research station on K-49. Other humans who wanted to study death worlds could come here and use what he had built as a base. The Zarathi would be granted limited immunity in this sector. They could continue using K-49 as a base as long as they followed certain rules. Klikchara seemed pleased with this arrangement, and most importantly, Jake's exile would be officially reclassified, not as punishment, but as voluntary colonization. This would set a precedent for other humans who wanted to settle hostile worlds. Zekthor was reluctant at first. but Lisa pointed out that refusing these conditions would make the council look bad. They had already admitted their sentence was unjust. Denying Jake's reasonable requests would only create more problems. Finally, Zekthor agreed. Jake packed his personal items. He decided to bring Betty with him. The original Betty, now old and gray around the muzzle. She had been his companion through everything. He could not leave her behind. As he boarded the council ship, Jake took one last look at his compound. The building stood strong against the wind. The garden was green and full of life. Smoke rose from the workshop where he had left a fire burning low. "I will be back," he told Clickchera, who had come to see him off. "Someone needs to check on this place." "We will keep it safe," the pirate promised. "You have our word." The ship lifted off. As they climbed through the atmosphere, Jake watched K-49 shrink below him. The planet that was supposed to break him. The planet that had instead shown him what he was truly capable of. "You know you are crazy, right?" Lisa said, sitting next to him. "Yeah," Jake agreed with a smile. "But it was a pretty good vacation." Weeks later, back in the Galactic Council chambers, Zekthor filed his final report on the Jake Morrison case. In the section marked Observations on Human Psychology, he wrote a warning for future council members. Recommendation: do not exile humans to Deathworlds as punishment. They will only improve the Deathworld and make friends with local criminals. This species adapts to hostile environments better than any species in known space. Further study is urgently needed. The report was filed and archived, but word spread quickly through the galaxy. Within months, applications from other humans requesting voluntary colonization of various hostile worlds began flooding the Council's offices. 17 humans wanted to settle on Class 10 or higher Deathworlds. Some wanted to farm. Some wanted to research. Some just wanted the challenge. The Galactic Council was forced to create an entirely new department to handle these requests. They called it the Human Settlement Office, and it quickly became one of their busiest departments. Back on Earth, Jake Morrison became famous. Not for being punished, but for proving what humans could do when pushed to their limits. Schools taught about his time on K-49. Engineers studied his designs. Colonists used his compound as a blueprint for their own settlements. And Jake? He spent 6 months on Earth, visiting family and friends, giving interviews, and testifying before the Council about human settlement rights. But he kept looking at the stars, kept thinking about his compound on K-49, kept wondering how the garden was doing. Finally, he could not wait anymore. He filed the paperwork, got the permits, and booked passage back to K-49. Lisa came with him. "Someone needs to document this properly," she said, "and someone needs to keep you from doing anything too crazy." When they landed on the plateau, Jake found his compound exactly as he had left it. The Zerathi had kept their promise. Everything was maintained and ready. He stood on his porch, Betty at his feet, Lisa beside him, and smiled. The galaxy had tried to punish him by sending him to a death world. Instead, they had given him a home. And now, that home would become a... Part 3, Exile to a Death World? Typical Tuesday for a human 3 months had passed since Jake arrived on K-49, and everything had changed. His small camp had grown into something that looked like a real settlement. The simple shelter was now surrounded by walls made from wood and stone. He had built a roof extension that collected rainwater into containers he had fashioned from hollowed logs. Jake himself had changed too. His body had fully adapted to the heavy gravity. He was stronger now, with more muscle than he had ever had on Earth. His reflexes were sharper. His senses were better. Living on a planet where everything wanted to kill you did that to a person. The local animals had mostly learned to avoid him. After he killed the big 6-legged predator that attacked his camp, he had dragged its body to the edge of his territory as a warning. The message was clear. This area belongs to the human now, but not all the animals stayed away. Some of the smaller creatures had figured out that staying near Jake's camp was actually safer. The big predators avoided the area, which made it a good place for the small animals to live. One of these animals had become special to Jake. It was one of the rabbit armadillo creatures he had first caught for food. This one had been hurt, probably in a fight with another animal. Jake found it limping near his camp, and instead of killing it, he decided to help it. He cleaned its wounds and gave it food. The creature was scared at first, but eventually it learned that Jake was not going to hurt it. After a week, it was following him around like a pet dog. Jake named her Betty. She was good company in a lonely place. Betty was pregnant now, which made Jake happy. If she had babies, he would have a steady supply of meat without having to hunt as much. He felt a bit guilty about that plan, but survival came first. Today, though, something new was happening. Jake heard sounds in the sky. Engines, ships. 3 vessels appeared over his plateau, circling slowly. They were not Galactic Council ships. These looked different, rougher, more dangerous. Jake grabbed his spear. He had made it from a strong branch and a sharp rock. It was a simple weapon, but effective. He waited as the ships landed in the clearing near his camp. The beings that came out were unlike anything Jake had seen before. They looked like giant insects standing about 7 feet tall. They had 4 arms each and bodies covered in shiny shells that changed colors in the light. They carried weapons, big ones, but the weapons were pointed at the ground. The leader walked forward. He had markings on his shell that looked like scars or decorations. A device on his belt started making sounds that turned into words Jake could understand. "Human," the alien said. "We are Zarathi. We did not expect to find anyone living here." "I am on vacation," Jake said, keeping his spear ready. The alien's antennae moved in what might have been laughter. "This planet is in our space. No one is supposed to be here. How did you arrive?" "The Galactic Council sent me here. It is a punishment. I hit someone who deserved it." The insects made clicking sounds to each other. The leader came closer, his many eyes looking at Jake carefully. "You are human, yes? We have heard of your people, the Deathworlders. Your species evolved on a planet so dangerous that you think risk is fun." "That is one way to put it," Jake said. "And they sent you here, to one of the most dangerous planets in this part of space." The alien made sounds that the translator said was laughing. "Either they fear you very much or they do not respect you at all." "Probably both," Jake admitted. The alien leader was quiet for a moment. Then he seemed to make a decision. "My name is Klikchara. We are pirates. We use this planet as a base because no one else will come here. You can stay on your plateau. We will not bother you if you do not bother us." "That works for me," Jake said. "But if you have any spare materials, I could use help making my wall stronger. This gravity makes building hard." Klikchara's antennae moved again. "You want to build? Here, on this planet? I am going to be here for 5 years. I might as well be comfortable." The pirates thought this was hilarious. Before they left, they gave Jake a pile of scrap metal and broken equipment. They seemed to think the crazy human was entertaining. After they flew away, Jake looked at the materials. There were metal sheets, wires, broken tools, and other useful things. This was perfect. Over the next few weeks, Jake used the new materials to improve his settlement. He built a better roof for his shelter using the metal sheets. He made new tools from the scrap. He even figured out how to create a basic forge using rocks and some of the metal. The Zarathi came back several times. Each time they brought more things they did not need. In exchange, Jake helped them fix their ships. He was good at repairing machines, and the pirates appreciated having a mechanic they could trust. Klikchara became something like a friend. He would sit with Jake by the fire and tell stories about the galaxy, about different planets and species, about the Galactic Council and their laws, about the free life of a pirate. "Your people have been asking about you," Klikchara said one evening. "The human government has contacted the council multiple times. They want to know if you are still alive." "What does the council say?" Jake asked. He was working on sharpening a new knife he had made. "They say you are alive. Your beacon sends signals that show your vital signs, but they do not tell your people anything else." "Now that sounds about right," Jake said. "The council does not like admitting when they are wrong. They may try to pardon you. Your case has become controversial. Many species think your punishment was too harsh." Jake looked up from his work. "How long would a pardon take?" "Unknown. The council is very slow. They like to debate everything for months. Then I am not going to worry about it." Jake tested the edge of his knife. It was sharp. "I have work to do here." Klikchara made a sound of approval. "You have done well here, Jake Morrison. Most beings would have died within days. But you have built a home." "It is not much yet," Jake said, looking at his settlement. But it is getting better. And it was true. Every day, Jake added something new. A better water system. A small garden where he tried to grow earth plants from seeds he had hidden in his boots. A workshop area where he could make things. A storage room for food and materials. Betty had her babies. There were 4 of them, small and helpless at first. Jake built them a pen to keep them safe. He knew he would eventually have to use them for food, but for now they were cute and made him smile. The planet that was supposed to kill him was becoming his home. The animals that were supposed to hunt him avoided his territory. The weather that was supposed to break him only made him stronger. Jake had learned something important. Humans did not conquer nature by fighting it. They conquered nature by understanding it and working with it. By learning its patterns and adapting to them. K-49 was dangerous, yes, but it was also beautiful. The sunsets were amazing, with colors Jake had never seen on Earth. The jungle was full of strange and wonderful creatures. The storms were terrifying but also exciting. This was not punishment anymore. This was life. One night, Jake sat on the wall he had built and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home planet, his family, his old life. But that life felt very far away now. Here on K-49, he was building something new, something that was entirely his own. The Galactic Council had tried to break him by sending him to a Deathworld. Instead, they had given him the greatest gift possible, freedom. Freedom to build. Freedom to create. Freedom to prove what one human could do when pushed to his limits. Jake smiled and went back to work. He had plans for tomorrow, big plans.